Hello everybody, I'm Jane Stavum, Superintendent of the Sioux Falls School District, and as we start the school year, we know that safety and security are on the minds of many people. And so today I have some distinguished guests joining me, and we're going to have a conversation about the things that we have in place as a school district and the partnership that we enjoy here in Sioux Falls with our Sioux Falls Police Department, and give you just a sense of what we do for reasonable measures on a day-to-day basis, as well as how things may look should there be an event that happens in our community, and just give you an idea of what that looks like as we all start the school year. So today, joining me is John Toome, Chief of Police, and Lieutenant Jason Leach, and Bob Bray, who is our risk manager, has been with the district about 10 years or so?
11 years, yeah.
11 years. So we're going to have just a series of questions and just a conversation today, and we know that there are many things that we think about as a school district that helps us to be welcoming, and at the same time we know that there are many things in place that help us kind of maintain a secure environment, and it's a difficult line that school districts walk to be both of those things. I hope we do a good job of that, but we want to talk through some of the specific things today. So Bob, you came 11 years ago. How are things different? What's happened over the last 11 years, just in kind of that big picture of safety and security?
Well, when I came on board, there had been two previous risk managers who had really laid the groundwork for the structure that we have today for our safe and secure program. And of course, that was built on the consequences and the aftermath of the Columbine shooting incident. And following that, the federal government provided funding for a number of initiatives. One of those was school resource officers. Another was to enhance radio communications with school districts. And then probably the most important was they provided funding to help school districts to develop emergency management plans, emergency operation plans. All of those the Sioux Falls School District had taken advantage of. So when I came on board, there was a pretty good base of and foundation for a safe and secure program. But clearly our challenge is always, what's the next threat? How do we assess its impact on us? What should we do to be prepared for it? How should we respond for it? And one of the really great things that is present here in the Sioux Falls area is the collaboration that we have with all of our partners, but in particular our first responders, law enforcement, emergency management, fire and EMS, emergency medical services, all work together, collaborate to ensure that we have the capability to respond no matter what the situation is. And so as time has gone on, we've taken advantage of technology to enhance our capabilities to be prepared. We've taken advantage of those relationships and the opportunity to plan and prepare, to train our personnel to be able to respond if we have an emergency. And so it's an evolving process, and the biggest challenge is to, as you suggest, to make sure that we not only have that capability, but to do it in such a way that we maintain that safe and secure environment, but also a welcoming environment.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, top of mind right now always is school shootings. We hear about that in the news, we see that, but when we talk about safety and security, it's many different things. What are some things that we prepare for in addition to maybe an event that involves a shooting?
You bet. When we do our risk assessment, and we involve our more importantly, our school resource officers in that process to identify just what are all those hazards and risks that exist out there. There's about 27 of them, and there's a spectrum. On that low end of that spectrum are things like the fire alarm system malfunction. Well, that causes a big stir, but there's very little impact. We repair the system and we move on. On the other end of that spectrum is the severe weather event, tornado, active shooter. Happen less frequently, but obviously the impact is much more severe. So in the midst of all of that, and as we have just gone through COVID, we add those other events that have an effect on the grand scheme of the Sioux Falls School District ability to provide that safe and secure environment for learning, for working for our employees, and for our visitors to come in, and parents and the public to be a part of our community.
So one of the important parts of our school safety plan for the district is our partnership between the district and the Sioux Falls Police Department, and that includes school resource officers. That might be one of the first people that somebody meets if they come to an event or when they come to one of our schools. Talk a little bit about the partnership. When did that begin? When did we begin having SROs in our schools?
Right, so I've been with the SRO program now for about 6 years, but our program goes way further back. We started in 1996 with 2 SROs, and that program continued to build and grow. Our leadership of the Sioux Falls Police Department over the years invested in the program and saw the value of the program, and now starting this school year we'll have 16 school resource officers and 2 sergeants that are assigned to primary duty is the safety and security of our schools. And so we have our officers in the schools assigned throughout the city. We cover all city schools within the city, not just the Sioux Falls School District, but we have our largest partnership with the Sioux Falls School District. But we manage over 60 buildings within the city of Sioux Falls, and in that our goal is to really focus on that triad concept of school resource officer model, and that puts us as first a law enforcement officer, second an informal counselor, and then third as an instructor or a teacher. So we really strive to create that safe and secure environment at the school, but then also be that friendly face, be that counselor, be that person that students can talk to, that teachers, staff can talk to. And then one of the funnest things that our officers get to do is get invited into the classroom and help teach. Might be something on safety and security, it might be something completely off, talking to a physics class about how our radar and LiDAR systems work, or a government class on different amendments and how that applies to our line of work. So our officers are really integrated in the school every day, and they really enjoy being part of the school team.
Mm-hmm. Chief, I think many people think that you just assign any officer to the school resource officer role, but there's actually a lot of training and intentional thought that goes into that.
Absolutely. I think, again, misconceptions about how we choose officers or select them for that position. And really, you have to be in the department for a bit, and you have to prove yourself, both your ability and your skills, both verbally and dealing with people, but also your skills as an officer. And we are very intentional about who we select, and that they have a great package of skills to meet the needs for the school. And again, we look at that like you talked about, being able to handle the whole spectrum, ones that have high impact, ones that have low impact, and everything in between. We just want to make sure we have the right people in the schools, and we are very deliberate in our selection of those officers.
Yeah, we appreciate that. There's such expertise that exists with the training that's ongoing too. It doesn't just end once you become a school resource officer. You know, they have to take continuing coursework and all kinds of things.
I think sometimes people think we roll people out of the academy and just give them a car and a gun and say good luck to you. No, I mean it's like any other profession. We are professionals, and we train every year in a variety of disciplines and make sure we're on the cutting edge of where we need to be, both in technology but also in training and practices.
Yeah, training is so important, and consistent training, which you have impacted our district tremendously in the area of consistent training. What happens with our school district administrators and staff? What kind of training do they get just to deal with the day-to-day possibility of any kind of threat?
I'm very conscientious about the stresses and requirements that are on our leadership in our school district, but probably most important from my perspective, and I hope from them as well, is that responsibility for the overall safety and security of their students, their employees, and the visitors. And so we make sure that all of our administrators are trained in the National Incident Management System, the Incident Command System. We have recently asked all of them to participate in training for threat assessment. We additionally conduct exercises and drills by state law for lockdown, for tornadoes, and for fire evacuation. And then throughout the school year, we will conduct exercises like tabletop exercises for our incident management team. We will frequently conduct an exercise for reunification with our reunification assigned branch. And so a very conscientious effort for physical training that takes place, but in addition to that, we have a number of videos that we've produced that cover pretty much all the dynamics of safety and security for the Sioux Falls School District. How to conduct visitor management, how to ensure that we have perimeter securities throughout our playground areas. All of those are areas of interest that are not only essential to the safety and security of the building, but also ensure that the public is well aware that we are committed to their safety and security.
Mm-hmm. It really is a coordinated effort, and some of those citywide drills that we have are great examples, but we all know when we train, the goal is to train so that we know automatically what to do. Talk about how that coordination happens. If there was, we had bad storms earlier this year. Luckily, most of those happened while we were not in session. It was either after hours or it was on a weekend. But when something happens that requires a coordinated response, how does that play out with the many different partners that we have that may show up on scene?
And that's a great question, because each incident has a very different response to it. And we'll just say storms, for example, and then we'll kind of move from there. And as chief, it's a luxury to see things from different perspectives. And so going out through my career, I was very operational. I was out in the middle of what was happening, out in the field, dealing with things. As chief, I get the chance to step back and watch all the pieces move. And I can use the recent storms as an example. It was amazing to watch everybody know their positions so well, what needs to be done and how to get it done, that it really required very little administrative input. Everybody's so well drilled and coordinated that we could just, whether it's the city, different city entities, the school district, our other partners, our open lines of communication work so well that we really, I'm not going to say it's effortless, but it just flows so well that it really makes things happen in a quick, expedient nature. And I think that's where we look at our relationship with the school district. We communicate so well day by day with issue by issue that really when we need to coordinate, we can coordinate on the fly, and it really, these predetermined lines of communication really matter a lot when critical incidents happen.
Mm-hmm. Your goal is you never want to need the training that you've had, but we all know that that's exactly why you do it.
Yeah.
I want to change focus just a little bit. Lieutenant Leach, you've spent time as an SRO, you've been with kids, you've been a parent, you think about things from many different angles. As we think about starting the school year, what do you think are the most important ways that parents can support the work that we do around safety and security in our schools as they prepare their child to come back to school this fall?
No, you nailed it. I see this on all sorts of different levels. Being involved in our SRO program, a law enforcement officer, a father, my wife is a teacher as well, so I see it at all different levels. But what parents can really focus on is being involved in their child's life and their school, and understanding who they're interacting with, and what they're doing, not only in their day-to-day operations, but what they're doing on their devices as well. Whether that be a smartphone, an iPad, a computer, what are they doing, and are they being safe in that? And how are they monitoring that? And if there is something that comes up that's concerning, do they know who to contact? Do they know who to contact at their school, within the school district? Do they know they can contact the police department? We'll come out and assess the situation as well, and look at it and cooperate with the school district on those incidences to make sure, because obviously if somebody sees something, we want them to say something. So if there's any sort of a threat or anything going on like that, we want to know about it immediately so we can start addressing the situation. So.
Yeah, it's been so amazing when we have had the need. As soon as we have called upon the police, you're on it. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think, really encouraging and affirming for people to know that. You touched on social media, so I'm going to follow up with that, because I was going to bring it up if you didn't. I think social media has added a layer of complexity to so much of what schools do. And there are, redeeming qualities, but there is also increasing concern about some of the influences of some of the platforms that we see. Kids making bad choices. Mm-hmm. Have you seen an increase in that just with regular police work, but especially with our students?
Yeah, we've seen an increase, and we see people more emboldened behind their smart device or their keyboard and say things or make comments And we don't want people to just brush those away. If there's a concerning comment, we want to be aware of it. We want to look into it. It might be nothing, but we want to investigate it, because we see timeless accounts across the country where an incident happens and then they start looking into it and somebody knew about something previously. We don't want to be that jurisdiction or that city, that municipality here, where somebody knew something and didn't say something. So we want people to come forward, bring those concerns to light so we can investigate them.
Yeah, and I don't think we can stress enough, see something, say something means contact the school district or the police department, not posting it on Facebook and hoping that somebody might see it.
Well, we found, and this is with not just issues like this, but with other crimes and other things that are happening in the city, people are more than willing to put it on Facebook. They're more than willing to talk about it within their neighborhood groups, yet not report it to the police. And we've actually had things go on where there's been multiple reports and one phone call to us. Yeah. And obviously we have a very big city. We have over 128,000 calls for service per year that happen within our community. And we need that community involvement. We need that open line of communication, because it's very hard for us to act if we're not receiving all the information, or just partial information, or sometimes no information at all.
Right. I was thinking when you were talking about being a parent too, we know that one of the best ways to prevent things from happening with our students is for them to be involved. And we have so many ways for kids to be involved in our district. We need parents to encourage them to do that, because that sense of belonging is often at the heart of why students make great choices, but sometimes why they make poor choices. What do we know when we think of things like gang activity and kids getting involved maybe in some groups that we would rather have them be doing something else? What's the best advice that you can give to parents about that?
Well, I think for parents, it's your right and responsibility to know what your kids are up to. I mean, and I think sometimes we've seen where people just maybe don't have that active role, and they're not communicating with their kids to really make sure that they understand and are on the same wavelength. And I think it's something that really, if you don't know where your kids are at, I mean, it's going to be problematic. That's just going to be problematic, you know? And so I think to really take your role as a parent or guardian and really be assertive within your kid's life and encourage them to look at some of the things. I know growing up as a Sioux Falls School District kid, right, I had my sports, I had music, and I had other groups that I was involved in, and I was pretty busy between all those different activities. But that sense of community you're talking about is right on. I mean, I think we get involved in different things, and the Sioux Falls School District has so many great programs to be involved with, and that sense of belonging and that sense of a really kind of purpose and togetherness that comes from that joint activity is really important. So we want to just encourage people to get their kids involved with a lot of the great things that the school district has to offer, or even just outside of school too, with different sports and activities that are out there.
Lots of community activities apart even from the Sioux Falls School District. Bob, when we think about the foundation, a good foundation is important for anything that we do. We've built a really strong foundation for safe and secure schools. What's that foundation look like? What are those pillars and the foundational pieces that when we talk with parents, what can they rely on?
Well, thank you. Our program is based on several pillars, and the platform for those pillars really is leadership. And I have to say that in my tenure, the leadership of the Sioux Falls School District has always had a focus on safety and security. Ensuring that we have policies, practices, and procedures in place, which is one of the key pillars of our program and success. And those policies, practices, and procedures provide the guidance for how our day-to-day operations go. So visitor management, how do we allow people into our facilities? Things like that are addressed in those policies and practices and procedures, like the standard operating procedures. Facility design is a huge pillar. When we just built the two new schools in Sioux Falls, Jefferson High School and Ben Rifle Middle School, the designers, the district involved school resource officers, involved emergency management to help them integrate with the codes, building codes, what those schools should look like from a safety and security perspective. Critical piece to making sure that you have a solid foundation for your safety program. training is essential, and we talked a little bit about that already, but we have a commitment to ensuring on an annual basis that we not only refresh everyone's memory about safety and security, but bring to their attention anything new that may have happened. Unfortunately, every time one of these incidents happens across the nation, we take the lessons learned, we assess how they impact our district, and we make adjustments as necessary, and that may involve more training. A key piece is technology. Technology is constantly changing. The Sioux Falls School District, with an eye on what is reasonable, has always taken advantage of technology to ensure that as a force multiplier, so to speak, we can add that to our capability to not only prevent an incident from happening, but also to alert ourselves when an incident is happening, and then to respond in the event that an emergency has happened. So we have a program called Alert Us, allows us to notify all of our employees no matter where they are, whether in a building or transiting between facilities like our food service folks, for example. And so we have that kind of technology in place as well. We've been talking about school resource officers. I like to say that probably our #1 force multiplier are school resource officers. People tend to think that that officer in uniform is a deterrent, is a responder, and certainly they are, but what I see, and I know our administrators see on a daily basis, is the relationship that they develop with kids throughout the district that helps to build that communication that oftentimes prevents situations from happening, and then just assists the administrators in their day-to-day operations. Vigilance. Everybody's just got to be vigilant. The other day I gave a presentation to our clericals coming on board for the new school year, and their administrative duties are their primary focus, but they're the first person that our customers, our students, our parents, and the general public meet when they walk into a building. They have the first responsibility for ensuring safety and security in that building. Yeah. So we are constantly enforcing vigilance of all our employees, that you just can't let something slide if you hear something. You need to see something, you need to say something. That's that last pillar I'll mention, as we've talked about, that's so critical. And we have prevented, I guess I'll say, any number of things from happening. We've also dispelled things that appeared to be dangerous but weren't, because someone had the common sense and the wherewithal to let us know, let a school resource officer know, let an administrator know that we got a problem. Yeah. And how to address it. Yeah. So,
and I think when we think about those layers that have been put in place, sometimes it feels like an inconvenience. If you're a parent coming to our schools for the first time and you have to push a buzzer, you can't just walk in, sometimes people think that that's not welcoming. Or if you're carrying cupcakes for your child's birthday and you have to stand there and wait, it's cold, you have to park, you know, all those things can really feel like an inconvenience. But we hope people realize that that's very much a part of how we do those layers of safety and security, and that they will extend grace and still give that secretary that they see the first time they walk in a big smile. You talked about growing and changing, and we know that that's important. So this year the school district is adding an additional person as a resource that will be out in buildings helping with training, helping to make sure that our practices are being implemented the way that we want them to be. We're also going to be adding an advisory group this year of some parents and staff that we think will just help us continue growing forward with those eyes and ears about where can we continue to get better, because we are all about continuous improvement, and there is no more important area than this area. Chief Toom, I'm just going to ask one final question of you. I think I would be remiss if I didn't kind of just put out there that I think just as we were ending school in May, we had the tragic events that unfolded in Uvalde, Texas. And I think, you know, as people come back to school, we think, how safe are we? Can we guarantee safety? What would you say as the chief of police in our community about the level of comfort and confidence that people can have in our partnership and in the response that our police would provide?
Yeah, it's a great question. I speak to the community events all the time. And this question is always coming up, and it comes up periodically, but especially after an incident, it comes up even more. And I think it's important to note that people look at different agencies' response and what happened, and we are too. We are students of the game, so to speak. We're always looking and always learning. And it's important for people to know, in '96, I was a junior at Lincoln High School when the school resource officers first showed up. And then I was in college when Columbine happened, hired here in 2005. And what immediately struck me when I got hired here in 2005 was the SRO program, but the amount of training we received at the individual officer level on how to deal with these incidents. And then throughout my career, I've worked in training, I've worked in special operations, and the level of training, and we keep evolving our response based on what happens in the world and what the industry best practices are and how we do that. And I think as we train officers, train with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, we've hosted trainings with our partner agencies to include Highway Patrol, Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office, but we've even hosted trainings with our federal partners. We are all on the same page, and we understand our role and responsibility in this, and we know that our response is measured in seconds, not minutes, not hours, and that critical that the individual officer feels that they have the sense of leadership and ownership of that situation, that they can make the decision that makes the difference. Mm-hmm. And I think that's central to our training, because we can put practices, we can put procedures in place. If the individual officer doesn't recognize their role and responsibility, but here we've empowered our officers to know that, you know what, when the chips are down, when decisions need to be made, they're the ones that are going to make it, and they're the ones that are going to make the difference that day. And I think to know that, to know the amount of effort we put into this, and I equate it to this, we train for it like it's the Super Bowl, like the ultimate test of our skills and abilities and our training. We never want to play in that game, but if we are called to that game, we're ready for it and we understand what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all for being with me today. It's an important partnership that we enjoy. We appreciate your service to our community. We appreciate our SROs, and this is just a vital partnership. We're grateful to the city for making this possible. Bob, thank you for your work and all the ways that you prepare us within our school district. We have so many things in place because of you. I think we can be both safe and welcoming when everybody diligently works together every single day to form that circle of security around our most precious assets, our children. So we invite you to be part of that circle. If you see something, say something, ask questions, know the basics, and join us in our efforts to make Sioux Falls School District the best in the nation for safety and security.